So the LTD X LS was the fastest and longest driver of last year, in my opinion, on average in the fittings. Can the Aerojet LS keep up? Well, you all know me. We're going to go in deep and thoroughly test these heads up against each other to really test out this new Aerojet and see what it's made of. So welcome back to Elite Performance Golf Studios, and today we've got another cracking head-to-head for you, and it's my first proper test and dive into the Aerojet driver from Cobra, and we're throwing it straight in the deep end. It's a head-to-head against last year's LTD X LS, and that driver was phenomenal. I think you all know, if you follow me for a while, I really liked the driver. It felt good, it was fast, it was long, it was fade bias, which at one point in my life was fantastic for me, sat brilliantly, looked brilliant behind the ball. And the brand new Aerojet LS from Cobra, I think, has got its work cut out for it to keep up with this LTD. So comment below, let me know what you think. Do you think it can keep up? Do you think it can outdo it? It's going to be tough. And as always, it's going to be a super in-depth performance technical test on quad, showing you some shots, showing you all the numbers, diving in to see what we really think of these drivers. We're going to be touching on look, sound, feel, all of those things, and summing it up at the end, as always. So if you like my videos, please make sure to like and subscribe, because we've got loads more like this coming. Right, performance time. You all know the drill. Performance first, because obviously it's most important. So starting off with the LTD X LS head, stock standard setup in terms of the weight. So the LTD X LS always had the 10 gram in the weight and then the 3 gram in the heel. 9-degree head. I've got it set to 8-degree on my Club Connect adapter, so it's 9 turned down to 8. We've got the Ventus TR Black 6X, as always, 45-inch playing length. And we'll touch on swing rate a little bit later, because there's a little bit of difference between these two heads this year. So we'll touch on that a little bit later. So yeah, that's the setup. Let's dive into this one. Okay, so we've got a perfect little hole setup today, kind of dog leg. Just everything kind of slopes around to the right. You see the flag down there on the right, there's bunkers all the way down the right, big lake on the right, so no doubt we're going to be getting some wet today, but hopefully not too many. If we hit a straight kind of pull, we're probably all right down the left in the trees, but we're going to be trying to play that nice little cut with the shape of this hole today. So let's see how we get on. That felt pretty solid. Perfect shot for this hole. Absolutely beautiful. Really good numbers as well. Always did like this head. Yep, beautiful strike. Perfect little cut delivery, super efficient. As we see, touching on 169, just over 169 ball speed from 116 club speed. Always really did like the feel of this head. Feels satisfying to hit. So the Aerojet has a lot to live up to with this head. And there's one thing about this head though, is fade bias, like probably one of the most, I would say. And that, when you're trying to hit a fade, I mean, that one we like. Kick right. Oh yes. Felt maybe a couple of mil high on the face, but 4 mil high, yeah. Getting great launch conditions. But yeah, it definitely was a very, very fade biased driver. Now we've got this set up open as well. We've got it turned down, which opens the face a little bit. We're trying to play a bit of a fade. But yeah, I've already kind of overcut a couple where it didn't actually feel like bad swings, but I'm still just losing it maybe a bit further right than I would expect. I mean, to be fair on this hole, we've not got a lot of leeway. I think probably 20 yards or so left right of where I'm aiming, and you're probably in the drink. So not much margin for error, but still. Like that's just curved. Like it actually felt, okay, it did feel like it was going to go right. Sploosh. It did feel like a little bit of a right swing, to be fair. What are we looking at? 4-2 out to in face, 2.6 open with a good strike. It's gone 21 yards right of target. Just curved maybe. I mean, if you look at the ball tracer, it feels like that curved more than it should have, basically. It's almost relate this head a little bit similar to Stealth One, where it was super, super good out the middle, but on the miss hits, or not even a miss hit, that was a great strike, but where maybe the face of the path wasn't perfect, you may be getting a little bit more curvature than you would maybe expect to see. You don't really get away with it much. So that certainly will be one thing to see. Can we get away with a little bit more with the new models? Because that's what we're after now. We know it's not going to be quicker. We know it's not going to be longer. But is it more stable? Can we get away with more? There we go. That's a good one. Love that. Like that one every day of the week. Yeah, great numbers. But I would say so far I've probably hit 14 shots. I reckon it's probably only, I had to restart the software because it froze, but there was probably only 4 of those in the fairway. I reckon 5 of them probably been in the drink right. So it's definitely easy to lose it right with this. And that is actually one of the things I used to really like about this head. I feel like my swing kind of, I'm progressing a little bit with it at the minute, but I always still have a left miss, and I used to have a big left miss. That's one thing I loved about this head, with it being super fade bias. So definitely not for everyone if you've got a right miss, that's for sure. Probably the same with Aerojet. It's going to be interesting to see. That felt a little necky. Lovely shot still. Yeah. Yep. Spun up a little bit, 26, tiny bit low heel, but yeah, still did fantastically. It did used to go on miss hits still, this thing. It did used to like get out there. Just used to be sometimes maybe a little bit more curved than you would like to see. So the miss got a little bit exaggerated at times. That's my only thing with this head. Wasn't quite stable as I hoped it would have been. Right, so into the Aerojet. So the setup that I was talking about earlier, so the swing weight of the LTD X LS with the same shaft, obviously exactly the same Ventus Black TR6X. I've just plugged out of that, put straight into this. So it's D1 with the LTD X LS. This is just over D2, so the head is heavier by about 2.5 grams. Now obviously we did have a 10 and a 3 in the LTD X LS. This now comes stock with a 12 and a 3. So we have actually got, maybe that's just where they've added a little bit of extra weight there in that 12 gram rather than 10. Don't know if there's any other weight that's been, you know, redistributed anywhere else in this head, not that I know of, but it is definitely a slightly heavier head. So its swing weight's up at now just over D2. So we definitely feel a little bit more weight down there, which again, for me, most of the time I don't like. Prefer to feel the LTD X LS. And looking down by the ball, I mean, the little look segment that I'm going to do later on, that I always do, this is going to be much easier with this one than it has been with previous, because yeah, I think you can see where it's going. Oh, that does feel good though. Oh, that does feel good. That does feel really good. It was right out the middle, so that helps. But yeah, 146 efficiency, super efficient. But wow, that came off. That was good. That actually surprised me a little bit, as you could probably tell. I mean, I've probably not dabbled with this head as much as the others just yet. Obviously, the Paradigm's kind of caught my attention, and doing head-to-heads with that and Stealth 2 and stuff. Kind of the bigger, maybe going to get a few more views kind of thing. But so I haven't dabbled with this as much. The times that I have, I thought it felt a little bit firm maybe, and a little bit harder, but that surprised me going straight from the LTD X LS to this. That felt great. That felt like it was going to go right. That's done amazing. That has done amazing. Wow. Yeah. I just felt like I was going to lose that right. Did feel a little bit high-toey. Again, it always feels worse than it looks on that graphic, but that to me felt like a swing, like with the LTD X LS, 100% that was going further right. Like 100%. It was almost hard not to hit that right. But then that felt more stable. Like it just definitely felt more solid than I think it would have with the XLS. also felt not great and like it was going to end up in the lake. 150% if that was the LTD XLS, that would have ended up in the lake. It wasn't the best strike, it didn't feel solid. We see the ball speed drop. Again, it looks good on the, on the map, but it didn't feel as good. But yeah, again, I felt like there's 3 little blue dots up there in the fairway so far with these 3 shots I've hit with this. 2 of them, I could have sworn would have been in trouble with the LTD. This is genuinely surprising me, actually, I must say. Interesting Aerojet. Again, it's just nowhere near as right bias, like nowhere near. Like that, again, I can't believe that's not gone in the water. Again, it didn't feel like, spun up a little bit, yeah, a little tiny bit low heel. So it did spin up, didn't feel my most solid of strikes. But again, it's ended up, what, 7 yards right of target, still a nice little fade, and we're in the fairway. I am surprised. Oh, that felt nice. That felt really nice. It's literally 5 in a row, just in the fairway. This is not an easy fairway to hit. So we see ball speed back up, efficiency good. Launch and spin, quite a nice window. I mean, it was 5 millimeters low, so would have spun a little bit more than if I'd have struck it out of the middle, but still 13 launch, 2350 backspin. I mean, yeah, that's impressed me. How is that just, this thing's ridiculous. Get on that line. What? Yeah, a couple of mil low again, but I mean, 170 ball, 0.5, I mean, that's just a stupid little cluster down there in the fairway. I mean, yeah, forgiving more so, 1,000,000%. So a little update on dispersion. I've just hit probably over 20 drives with the Aerojet, and I hit 1 in the water right, which will be this one here. It's a little cluster just, which would have been just over the bunker on the right-hand side there, which is fine. This big cluster that's all in the fairway. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, probably 10. A couple, maybe 1 left rough and a few in the left trees. But 1 in the water, I mean, less fade bias, 100%. 100%. More forgiving on off-center hits, 100%. Hit some horrendous shots there, and I was like, how has that done that? Like, it just hitting this fairway, and it's just so good. Right, numbers, numbers, numbers. Now, I must say that did surprise me, actually. I mean, as you're going to see, not in terms of the performance, well, maybe a little bit, actually. I'll explain why. So, if we look at the LTD X LS on top and the Aerojet LS on the bottom, ball speed, yeah, nothing in it on average. Like, do I think the Aerojet's quicker at the middle? No. Do I think the Aerojet is quicker across the face? No, it's not. Like, I'm not getting any more ball speed, all right? It's enough. But no, it's pretty much maxed out on the ball speed, and I think the LTD X LS was a long driver. Like, I think it's a longer driver than the, well, it is a longer driver than the Aerojet because it's actually a little bit lower spin. So we saw about 100 revs higher spin out of the Aerojet than the LTD X LS, and yeah, I think that probably is about right. About 100, 150 revs is a little bit higher spin. But I think that that just helps keep it in play. And on miss hits, it was better at spin retention. So when I hit it a bit high, when I hit a bit high toe, where the LTD X LS would drop more, the Aerojet LS stayed more consistent. So you can see that in the standard deviation of the spin was tighter, it was more consistent versus the LTD X LS at 436, I was at 250. So 200 revs, kind of more consistent almost, which I definitely saw, which is really impressive. And it just, as I was kind of explaining through the shots, it just curved less. It wanted to move less. I felt more stable, more solid, like just better performance across the face in terms of forgiveness, right? In terms of being punished. Yeah, ball speed the same. Launch was pretty similar, to be fair. You know, 13.5 the LTD X LS, 13.8 with the Aerojet. Wasn't too much there. As I said, tiny bit higher spin, I think, with the Aerojet LS this year. Just a smidge. So In total, it pretty much equated to a very similar carry yardage, 295, 294. But again, we can see the Aerojet LS was more consistent in terms of that carry that we were seeing, even on miss hits. It was more consistent. See the dispersion front to back, much tighter, and we kind of didn't get as many of those leaky right ones as well. So front to back and left to right dispersion was better. Like overall, just a better performing driver, I think. And I've changed my opinion on the feel. It feels more solid, sounds better. Like, oh, it's just, yeah, it really does. Don't know about the looks, we'll discuss that in a minute, but yeah, the feel and sound, solid. Right, so another bit with the Aerojet, right, is their story is a lot to do with aerodynamics. So did we swing it any faster? Of course we didn't. Exactly the same. 115, 115 on the nose. Efficiency identical on the nose. So one thing that I did find with the LTD X LS, and I think they cottoned onto it and then now kind of maybe moved it into a bit more of a marketing story, but you could definitely swing the LTD X LS faster. I saw it consistently in a lot of fittings against other kind of brands drivers. And this is no different. Obviously, it's just the same, really. It's the same. But didn't really expect much from that, to be honest. Dynamic loft, we delivered a little bit less with the LTD X LS and a little bit more with the Aerojet. Only 1 degree. It's enough to make a little bit of a difference. And that's one thing I did find with that LTD X LS last year. It was like the king of low dynamic loft. Like, if you wanted to get dynamic loft down, go to the LTD X LS. Like, it was a monster. So that's obviously where we're seeing a little bit more spin and that little bit more dynamic loft. Dynamic lie, there was only ½ a degree in it. I don't actually think there's any changes in these heads this year. Comment down below if I'm wrong, but not that I know of. ½ a degree is more than enough of human variation. Base angle, the same. Path, the same. Angle of attack, the same. So I swung these clubs pretty much identical. Saying the average strike was a touch lower with the Aerojet, which I probably agree with, which again could be an argument made for that's why we got a little bit more spin, but the dynamic loft would also indicate that it's just the design of the head. And I always keep an eye on these numbers. When I hit one bang out the middle, perfect delivery, I'm like, right, what did that do? And I keep an eye on it. And I do generally think that the Aerojet LS just does spin a smidge more than the LTD X LS. Right, so let's do it. Let's touch on these looks. And obviously the big story is gloss. Glossy, glossy, shiny, glossy. Obviously still carbon crown, obviously like all the drivers. But yeah, super, super gloss. So I don't know, let me know what you think down below. Do you prefer the gloss or do you prefer the matte? I mean, certainly indoors, the gloss obviously looks very shiny. You can see all the spotlights, whereas you can't see any of that on the matte. We've kind of almost lost the kind of turbulator kind of lines that we had on the LTD X LS as well. Those two little lines that run from front to back, they've gone. So it's a bit of a cleaner look, I suppose. From a shape perspective, it's almost hard to say because of the gloss and the matte, but looks pretty similar. Yeah, I can't tell a massive difference. One thing that I definitely do notice is you see more of the face of the LTD X LS, whereas I'm pretty sure it sits more open. Like, it was a very open driver anyway. When you turned it down, it really sat open. So it's a very open looking driver, whereas actually even turned down, the Aerojet looks a little bit more square, like you can't see as much of the face. Almost looks down by the ball like the Aerojet maybe is a higher face, like top to bottom, like whereas the LTD X LS looks a little bit squatter. But I almost think that's an optical illusion, to be honest, because yeah, I don't think they are. The shape of the face actually looks, to my eye, very, very similar. So down by the ball, I mean, I got to give it to the LTD X LS purely based on the fact that I really like that matte and not the gloss. But I tell you what, when I was hitting the Aerojet, and the better I felt with it, the more confident I felt with it, I quickly started to change my opinion on how it looked. So when you're hitting something well, when you're enjoying hitting something, and I was enjoying hitting it, you kind of slowly grow to like it. From above, though, I think it's a slightly different story. I actually prefer the Aerojet. The LTD X LS was a bit busy with those kind of gold lines, jotting in and jotting across, and a bit blingy with the gold, to be honest. So, but I think the Aerojet with the kind of it's almost like a satin white and the blue with the carbon actually looks really nice. So, for me, from the top, definitely got to give it to the Aerojet. So while we're talking about that, we'll talk briefly on the kind of Infinity and the milled face that we no longer have anymore. Now, that's not necessarily because they didn't believe it was a good kind of idea and it didn't function well. It was more, I want to say, a cost-saving exercise, but it's because of the new power bridge that they've kind of introduced into the Aerojet, which I'll try and kind of shot something in so you can kind of get an idea of what it is. It's kind of a horizontal bridge that kind of links the left to the right, so almost like a horizontal jailbreak sort of thing, but it's hollow at the bottom. It's kind of like almost suspended and just joins from left to right. Now the face of the new Aerojet actually goes kind of around underneath and like links at the bottom to kind of almost give the face more flexion, which is what they were trying to do with that power bridge, and suspend it, give the bottom of the face a little bit more flexion, the chassis a bit more flexion, and then it's going to feel a little bit better on low strikes and in theory produce a little bit more ball speed, right? So that was the theory behind the new power bridge tech, and in order to do that they had to like wrap the face around the bottom and join it at the bottom. And in order to do that with a milled face, they kind of felt that the cost outweighed the performance benefit that you gained from it. So that was one of the main reasons from going away from the milled face. Apart from that, I do think it feels actually better. I think it feels more solid. So regardless of that, I know that the milling was more of a consistency thing across the face. They've tried to do the best they can now with this as well, they're saying, but it definitely does, to me, feel and sound better. Now, I'm not going to do the whole feel and sound element of this video because I kind of touched on it earlier, but no question in my mind, if you ask me to pick which one sounds and feels better, the Aerojet feels more solid across the face, especially on mishits, sounds duller, thuddier, nicer, no question asked, and just overall performs better, like more stable. Maybe not as long, I'm not talking about length anymore. I know all these other reviews are talking about, oh, we're not seeing any more distance. Yeah, no, you know, you're not gonna, right? We know that by now. It's not what they're trying to achieve. They're trying to achieve stability and forgiveness and kind of retain the spin and ball speed across the face as much as they possibly can, but mainly to not punish you as much on mishits. And I really, really feel like that's exactly what they've done in this model. So for once, I feel like this is actually going to be quite an easy summary. And if you asked me at the beginning of this video, if that would have been the case, like no chance, no way. Like I thought this was going to be very close. I thought the Aerojet was going to struggle because the LTD X LS was just a long, quick, fast driver. If there's one thing that I didn't like about it, was it felt like you did get punished a little bit more on those, not even mishits, just when you were a little bit off with the face to path, there was a little bit more curvature with that head. And in my opinion, they've definitely fixed that in the Aerojet LS with other upgrades. Like visuals aside, that's going to be very subjective. Sound quality, like lower pitch, thudder, duller, nice, feels solid across the face. Like even on the mishits, it feels more solid. I don't think it's faster across the face. I think the spin retains better across the face, and I think you get punished less when you get it slightly off. So in my opinion, that is just a massive win for Cobra this year, because that driver was great. The one area they could have improved on, I feel like they have. You know, marketing aside, with the aerodynamics and the power bridge and whatnot, like it is definitely just a better driver. So there you go, pretty easy summary for once, right? So I really hope you enjoyed that video. Please let me know what you thought below. Did that surprise you as well? Let me know what you want to see next. Loads more heads-to-heads to come. That's been thrown in the mix big time now, I think, with the other drivers, because I really like the LTD X LS. And the only thing might be just the way it looks behind the ball and sits behind the ball that might throw me towards some of the others, but the performance and feel is unreal of that thing. So, whoo, got more coming. Stay tuned, and I'll see you in the next one.